It was clear that Stan Lee himself liked the Hulk, the way he would continue to bring the character into the other successful ongoing titles kept the character alive. And yet the one we have to thank for bringing the Hulk back into an ongoing monthly title is Steve Ditko. According to Marvel historians, Stan asked Ditko which of three characters that he would like to start doing on a monthly title: Khazar, Namor the Submariner, or the Hulk. It was the New Mexico setting that piqued Ditko's interest, and so after his guest appearance with Hank Pym, the Hulk would occupy the B storyline in Tales to Astonish going forward. Even when Ditko eventually left, the popularity of the Hulk was sufficient to keep his stories coming. After all, Stan had put him up against the biggest names of the young Marvel Universe many, many times, and made clear this was a character that was a force to be reckoned with. The reason for putting the Hulk in Tales to Astonish was due to a problem Marvel had run into the previous decade. Their distributor suddenly stopped distributing comics, which obviously was an existential threat to Marvel. Desperate for a way out of this, they started getting distributed through Independent News, which also was part of a family containing DC Comics. This put Marvel in a bind, but with no other options, they signed an agreement for distribution. But that agreement stipulated that Marvel could only put out 8 monthly books. Note that this is for monthly books. It seems that it didn't apply to books that came out less regularly, hence why The Incredible Hulk and The Avengers started out as bi-monthly books. Fast forward to the early 60s, and Stan and the Marvel bullpen were still stuck with this raw deal. So as a way to get around it, some of their anthology tales started getting taken over, such as Spider-Man first appearing in Amazing Fantasy, or Journey into Mystery slowly becoming solely about Thor. So over on Tales of Suspense, the book was running Iron Man stories, but began also running Captain America stories. And on Tales to Astonish, Hank Pym was now sharing the book with stories about the Hulk. In time, the Submariner replaced Hank, but by 1968, Marvel was in a strong enough position so that this was no longer necessary. So Tales of Suspense suddenly changed its title to Captain America, and Tales to Astonish changed its to The Incredible Hulk. While it might seem that an anthology book that was shared with another character wouldn't be terribly important, the Tales to Astonish era is actually vital to the Hulk mythos. It was during this run that many central aspects of the character were decided. For instance, the transformation being induced by anger. Many say this was decided by Ditko, though previous events to Tales suggest either that was a mistake or that Ditko's idea was incorporated before the move to Tales. But either way, anger being the trigger rather than using the gamma ray machine was the way it would go forward. Other examples are the Hulk going from a rough-and-tumble cunning adversary to his low-intelligence, savage persona that he is universally known for. The Hulk goes from being a hero that Banner becomes to save the day to a curse that Banner must try to cope with. And finally, the world learned that the Hulk and Bruce Banner were the same person. This final point is nothing new for heroes, as they would often have their secret identities compromised, only to have some way of making it seem like they are actually other people, such as when Peter Parker confessed that he was Spider-Man, and then had the Prowler pretend that he was Spider-Man to undo this revelation. But Bruce Banner's secret, once out, stayed out. At this point, even Mephisto might have a hard time making the world forget. This was a logical move, though. Without the transformation being predictable, like the day or night, or deliberately induced, like with the gamma equipment, sooner or later someone was going to see the transformation happening. It would be too contrived for it not to be witnessed. In this part, we'll take a look at the first 15 issues of the Tales to Astonish run. Typically, these stories are only 10 pages long, and they're very serialized, so they're going to blend together. Issue 60 shows things remain as we had last seen them. The Hulk is still the Joe persona, clearly different from Banner, as seen when he laments, right up until the completion of his transformation, that he has to return to being the puny scientist. The first 5 panels of this new era already not only demonstrate the divide, and show that the Hulk is the part of Banner which embraces the power of the Hulk, but already Banner is wondering if perhaps the Hulk is who he is now, and this form is just a vestigial remnant of the man that he had been. Effective stuff for less than half of the first page. With his secrets still safe for now, Banner is still working at Gamma Base under General Ross. At the moment, he's completing a new robot, unaware that there's someone else interested in it. I've been trying not to make any cracks throughout this because I want to treat this as a serious examination, but I do have to comment that Gamma Base has the worst vetting system because this is the third infiltrator that we know about. When Banner spots the spy, the stress of chasing after him causes the transformation, leaving the spy free to board the robot. It's piloted by a human occupant. When it leaves, everyone assumes that Banner is piloting it, since no one else was in the building, while the Hulk assumes that it was a weapon that Banner made to defeat him, and so attacks it. Now, at this time, stress not only causes Bruce to become the Hulk, it will also cause the Hulk to turn into Bruce. So this fight eventually reaches the point where the Hulk gets so frustrated that he changes back. At first he's blamed, but soon the robot is spotted, and Banner is convinced that an even more powerful robot is needed in order to stop this thing. But this is when the Pentagon finally acquiesces to General Ross's demands and sends someone to keep an eye on things, specifically Bruce Banner. The new arrival is Major Glenn Talbot, who is equally convinced that Banner is up to no good, no matter his contributions. While searching for Banner with Betty Ross, they find the Hulk, who changed once Banner saw that the robot had used the stuff in his lab to build a missile in order to attack Gamma Base. The Hulk sorts out the robot by pushing it into a pit and then stops the missile, but is knocked unconscious, so Talbot quickly has him taken prisoner. The Hulk can likely break free, but the strain will cause him to turn back into Banner, which would give away his secret identity. Observing all of this is a new figure who calls himself the Leader, who is issuing orders to the Chameleon, who normally fights Spider-Man, but has been mixing things up with other heroes for a little while. It turns out the spy who took control of the robot worked for the Leader, who wants to know what happened with the robot, so the Chameleon is heading there in disguise, sitting alongside Rick Jones, actually, who leaves Captain America's side for the time being to try to help out Bruce. After arriving, the Chameleon then disguises himself as General Ross to try to turn the Hulk into an ally in return for freeing him. But in the confusion, the Hulk changes back into Bruce and slips away, unnoticed. Fortunately, Rick is nearby and able to quickly help Banner out, and while there is still suspicion that he's up to something, for the moment his secret is safe. But that might be the only one, as he is quickly abducted by the Chameleon, who disguises himself as Banner to get access to his research, which includes a prototype for a gamma grenade. When the Hulk emerges and comes for him, the Chameleon threatens to use it, and while the grenade will not hurt the Hulk, we're told, in a dim recess in his clouded brain, one small part, which is still Bruce Banner, remembers the power of the gamma bomb, and that same small part of Dr. Banner cannot let the entire base be wiped out. This similarly motivates him a page later when Betty is put into an unpiloted rocket sled and the Hulk is compelled to save her. And despite momentarily forgetting the Chameleon to fight the soldiers, when the grenade is ready to go off, the Hulk throws himself upon it and saves everyone, although turning back to Banner in the process. The Hulk's change into Banner during stress is a development that will be reversed in the future, because in time it will not only be that the Hulk can get angry, but anger will make him stronger. We can probably hand-wave this current predicament away as a temporary byproduct of the gamma pill that Rick used on the Hulk when he was enraged back in Fantastic Four 26, that had probably caused some kind of change to his metabolism. After all, between the day-night cycle and being zapped repeatedly by gamma rays, it's no surprise that any change might throw the whole works out of whack for a while before the system finally stabilized. The story makes overt the implication of the Avengers storyline that we covered in Part 2, that Banner is not in control of the Hulk, but rather that he mitigates his behavior with his own morality and values, and that varies depending on their mood. Normalcy, Betty's affection, and Rick's friendship can help the Hulk push the slider back towards the more heroic figure that he was while still being contemptuous of humanity in general, and having no love for those he winds up helping many times. Issue 63 finally reveals who the leader, the man in the hood, actually is. Samuel Stearns, we learn, was a lowly, unintelligent laborer until accidental exposure to gamma rays and a 1 in a million chance at his job caused him to change. Suddenly, the high school dropout was obsessed with reading. Eventually, he passed out and awoke with green skin, an enlarged cranium, and superintelligence. He aspired to take over the world using his vast intellect, but his spy network, hence the involvement of the chameleon, is unraveling. So he's working on a creature that he calls the humanoid, a super-strong automaton that he can control mentally. The leader uses it to attack a train with a gamma device that Banner invented, and the strain causes the transformation into the Hulk, leading to the first confrontation between the two, even if it is remotely thanks to the humanoid. Realizing their mutual skin tone implies the Hulk likely is also a gamma creature, the leader is at first intrigued, but the Hulk's victory is thwarting the humanoid, making clear that he is an enemy that needs to be destroyed. As for poor Bruce Banner, while the Hulk saved the nuclear device, Banner is locked up on the presumption that he's involved in its disappearance. In the next issue, in fact, he's taking tranquilizers to help ensure that he won't get so stressed that he'll transform in prison. Rick is still on his side, though, and when Banner explains why he can't confess, not without risking them trying to learn how he became the Hulk and try to duplicate that, Rick decides the only way to save Bruce, then, is to talk to the only person that the authorities cannot refuse, the President himself. Given his status as an Avenger, he's able to get access and explains to the President who Bruce really is and why it's vital that this be kept secret. The President agrees, dropping everything against Banner, and just in time, because the leader is sending a horde of humanoids against the island where Banner and Talbot are going to be testing Bruce's invention, the Absorbitron. The problem is Talbot is sure that Hulk and Banner are working together, and his harassment finally is too much and Banner changes. Soon the Hulk is battling the humanoids, until next issue, the Russians show up. In the confusion, the Hulk is changing back after falling into the ocean and gets rescued/captured by the Ruskies, who bring him to their scientific work prison to make things for the Soviets. Of course, the Hulk emerges and proceeds to trash the place. Up until now, the Hulk's enemies tend more towards the heroes than the villains, and even in the future, a list of the Hulk's adversaries tends to include the Thing and Wolverine as much as standard enemies. His initial enemies were rather one-note characters. The Wrecker that he fought isn't even connected to the Marvel villain who is called the Wrecker. Those who did return were extremely limited in their use, like the Toadmen. Tyrannus, he appeared every once in a great while, but we're talking many years between appearances. The leader, though, is the first really solid member of the Hulk's rogue gallery, unless you want to count Thunderbolt Ross in the army. The leader serves as the Hulk's own Lex Luthor, the mad scientist supervillain coming at him with brains rather than superpowers. But the unique twist that makes him such a good adversary for the Hulk is this fact that they complement each other so well, despite being so different. The fact that these are the only two up until now to have gamma-spawned abilities illustrates their connection. Like the Hulk, the leader is everything that Stearns never was. But rather than becoming physically powerful and emotionally unrestrained, the leader is an unparalleled genius with boundless ambition. It's only in discovering the existence of another like himself that seems to eclipse the leader's previous goals. During this period, while the Hulk resents being Banner, we are seeing that Banner is growing to dislike the Hulk, the growing sense that this transformation is a curse to be avoided. Only when he's trapped by the Russians does it finally occur to him that he can use the Hulk to get out of here. Obvious to us, but a sign, rather, that the Hulk isn't the solution in Banner's mind. He's the problem. Consequently, the divide between Banner and the Hulk grows, and as it goes, we see the Hulk's intelligence beginning to decline, even going back to his first appearance when he seemed to forget that the picture he was looking at was of himself. It's in issue number 66 that the so-called Savage Hulk seems to be emerging, as evidenced by his use of Hulk rather than the Hulk. While he continues trashing the Ruskies, Major Talbot, the Pentagon, and General Ross all think that Banner might have defected, and the leader speculates that the appearance of Banner and the Hulk in proximity to one another is more than just coincidence. For that reason, he leaves the Hulk and Banner to their own devices, waiting for them to return to America in due course, and meanwhile continuing his other pursuits. This means that the Hulk is free to smash a lot of Russian tanks before finally changing back to Banner, who is then sold back to America by a third party that finds him in the wilderness. Major Talbot is sent to collect him, though he is convinced that Banner is a traitor and is only bringing him back to answer for his crimes. Naturally, hijinks happen, but the Hulk does make it back, and Banner gets arrested again. And Talbot speaks with the President himself, who still decides that Bruce Banner is innocent without saying why. Instead, he puts Talbot in charge of watching over Banner while he works on his invention. But this actually makes the problem worse. Talbot will not stop nagging Banner that he left him behind to die. In fact, the Hulk saved Talbot's life. And Banner laments, "Why must I be hounded by those I try to help?" The persecution is going to play into a topic that we'll get into in Part 4. By now we've reached issue number 68. I'm just throwing these out as occasional landmarks for you to tell where we're at. The stories really flow into each other, and it's a bit difficult to get down to the nitty-gritty of every single time the Hulk smashes a Russian tank. Well, at this time, the leader is making another play for the Absorbitron, this time with an entire army of humanoids that are microscopic but can grow to normal size at his command. He's able to release them on the island and enlarge them, overwhelming Talbot and eventually forcing the Hulk to transform. But, prepared for his enemy's appearance, the leader uses knockout gas to capture the Hulk as well as the Absorbitron. Hauling him back to his hidden lair, the leader starts examining the unconscious Hulk, who transforms, unnoticed, back into Banner. But after this latest incident, General Ross has had enough and orders that Banner be shot on sight. After the Hulk is again brought out, thanks to the leader's knockout gas, he smashes the Absorbitron based on a vestigial memory from Bruce Banner about how the leader can't possess it. But still, the leader manages to escape, and the army arrives thanks to signals that Banner had sent. Rick Jones is also on hand, but only in time to see Bruce after he's been shot in the head and declared dead, bringing us to issue number 70. Incidentally, the point when Hank Pym was replaced by the Submariner as the A story for the book is issue 70. Rick gambles that he can still save Bruce and brings him back to the cave and uses the gamma equipment on him, which works, but with a side effect. The Hulk has the mind of Bruce Banner. Fully now. No sign of either Joe or the Savage Hulk, just plain Banner. But the bullet, which is likely responsible, is still in there and can kill Bruce Banner, so immediately the Hulk gets to work to achieve what the monster had long been chasing, a means to never turn back into the puny body of the scientist. Creating Major Talbot offered a rare opportunity for the Hulk, one who was equally obsessed with the monster and his science persona. It was a wise introduction to the series, as it allowed the continuation of the military hounding without the need for General Ross to remain the primary antagonist. Otherwise, things could have become ridiculous. Talbot is instead able to handle specific important tasks involving the Hulk or Banner, rather than making us wonder why, for example, a general would waste time personally babysitting a scientist. Rather than making him simply General Ross Mini-Me, having Talbot attracted to Betty Ross meant that his own judgment on the subject of Banner was compromised, that he wanted Bruce to be guilty because then the impediment in his way would be gone and he could have Betty to himself. Interestingly, this doesn't go both ways. While Bruce doesn't appreciate being mistreated by Talbot, overhearing him confess his love to Betty makes the Banner Hulk wonder if that's what would be best for her. The leader has created a new gigantic humanoid which he intends to sell for $1 billion to a foreign power, but they want a demonstration first, so his creation is sent to destroy Gamma Base. The Hulk can't destroy it, but he can keep it off balance so that it can't destroy things. But Rick Jones is soon running out there because Ross is prepared to destroy the Hulk and the humanoid with one enormous missile. But thanks to the warning and the Hulk's super leap ability, the pair are able to clear the explosion. After all of this only happened because Banner saved Rick's life. It'd be for nothing if the kid wound up dying anyway while futilely standing with the Hulk. However, while the cave is about to be shelled by atomic weapons, the leader gives the Hulk an ultimatum. Get beamed away to become his henchman, or stay here and die. The Hulk hates the idea, but the more the bombs fall, the more the Joe persona takes over, and the more the Hulk resents the entire human race for the way it mistreats him. He agrees, but he's not impressed with the leader's plot to take over the world, and is only stopped thanks to more sleeping gas. But the leader doesn't realize that over time the gas causes the Hulk and Banner to switch forms, and there's still a bullet in his brain, remember. It's only the leader's own gamma-ray exposed body providing enough energy for the Hulk to stave off the change, and the leader soon discovers and removes the bullet using his advanced scientific knowledge. When he does this, Banner is again fully in control, suggesting that the bullet may have stimulated his brain in a certain way to cause this, and likewise the stimulation of destroying the bullet has also returned his control. While Banner laments being stuck in a green monster who will be forever hunted, he nevertheless recognizes that he is indebted to the leader for saving his life, and participates in his numerous tests to try to determine the Hulk's power. But it's impossible. The Hulk is so strong and so tough, equipment can't be built that's capable of testing his limits. So he knows the Hulk is up to the job that he needs to do, which he's discovered thanks to the blue area of the moon that was discovered in the Fantastic Four, where the Watcher resides. The leader has found that the Watcher has connection to a distant planet, and the leader wants his technology, so he intends to send the Hulk to this distant planet thanks to the power of this special transporter that converts him into thought, and thus can travel faster even than light itself. Because the Watcher cannot interfere, he allows the Hulk to take what the leader wants, but in order to get to it, the Hulk will need to defeat the most powerful creature in the galaxy, leading us into issue number 74. It's in this issue, during the fight, that Banner finally acknowledges what we've been seeing, that every time he takes control of the Hulk, he can't help but become, over time, more and more of the monster that he appears. I imagine this as being like a really thick milkshake. You can take it, turn it upside down in a bowl and pull the glass away, and for a time it will retain its shape. But eventually the milkshake will change to fit the shape of the bowl that it's in. Banner just can't fit into the shape of the Hulk's brain without having his mind take on the Hulk's too. Because again, it is his brain. He is the monster. With strength and cunning, the Hulk is able to finally defeat the alien brute, despite the latter being the result of countless generations of careful breeding to produce the ultimate warrior. It's still not enough. So the Watcher finally sends the vanquished foe back to its homeworld and allows the Hulk to take the ultimate machine, this yellow sphere, which will give the leader all knowledge in the known universe. Greedy to know more, the leader puts his head in the sphere. But it's too much, even for him, and he falls over dead, bringing the Hulk's first Gamma adversary to his end by giving him exactly what he wanted. So as we have seen over this, it's practically as if the original 6-issue series had never been cancelled. The status quo of it is intact when we start, but at this point it feels much more like there's a more committed direction to it, despite the fact that the Hulk goes through several changes even in this rather brief 15-issue storyline. Rather than feel like the book is fumbling as it did starting with issue number 3 of the original series, instead it feels like Stan's interested in keeping you guessing on where things will go next. When you look back at the development of the Marvel Universe, you really see how essential the early Rogues Gallery for the heroes managed to have such staying power. There aren't too many popular villains of Spider-Man that weren't from the early days, although that could be argued because a lot of them were so good at being anti-heroes that they were spun off in a different direction. Punisher, Morbius, and Venom, for example. But as I said, the Hulk's initial villains had little staying power. Even the most commonly reoccurring of them, Tyrannus, has long years appearing between his unremarkable appearances. The only recurring adversaries for him have been the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. So far, I mean. Which gets to the nub of the issue. The Hulk is just not your typical hero. As discussed, he doesn't rush out to end villainy anymore. He is, at best, a convenient blunt object to be hurled at a threat. At worst, he is the threat. The way Stan spins out the story leads to the Hulk's first real adversary being a frenemy, appropriate as the yin to the Hulk's yang. As Oscar Wilde said, you can always judge a man by the quality of his enemies, and the leader fits into that well, showing why the Hulk would become the villain's obsession, and showing why the Hulk would be tempted to eventually work for his own nemesis. The leader's inclusion in this particular arc provides a recurring backdrop for the Hulk's adventures. He was either present in each book or behind the scenes for the events that were happening. And that's important to remember, because it was thanks to this that Bruce Banner's life began to crumble, and as we'll see in our next part, lead directly to it being destroyed forever.